It's week 2 of Monsters of the Midweek. I'm Anthony K. I'm here with the producer, Mike DeFran. Mike, man, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Hey, anytime, I don't even care if it's a preseason. Anytime I get a good showing and a win from the Bears, I'm in a good mood.
Absolutely, especially when the quarterback play well. That's a very rare thing for us.
Yeah, it's I know we're gonna probably talk about it, but I'm very excited about our quarterback, short term and long term, for the
hmm
first time in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a new feeling. You don't know how to feel. I've never really had this way before. Um, so I guess to just jump right into it,
Yeah, let's do it.
how did you feel about Fields and Andy Dalton in the first preseason game, and how do you feel about them moving forward? Towards the end of training camp and the start of the regular season.
So I don't want to get too high. I'll start with Fields because I think that's the one everyone's talking about because he looked fantastic.
Right.
That being said, it's the first game of the preseason, and he went up against a bunch of backups. So
Right.
I don't want to crown him yet. However, look, the things that I looked for, right? When I looked at his footwork, his reads, did he look panicked in the pocket? When he had a bad play, when he threw an incompletion, what did he do? Did he walk off to the sideline with his head down, or did he go with his head up, like that body language?
hmm
All of those things were positives for me. So I feel really good about his hold, his grasp of the offense, and his confidence in what he can do. So those were all really good things. From Dalton's standpoint, I wasn't expecting much because he's a veteran guy. He knows he's going to be in there for a real short period of time. It's just to kind of stay loose, get a little game speed. So I didn't expect him to come out and sling it and throw the 70-yard touchdown. I expect them to do what he did: come out, play it safe, stay loose, and stay warm. And that's what he did. So did he look amazing? No, I don't think
hmm
he was trying to. Did he look horrible? No, it looked like he understood the offense, and he looked like a typical kind of veteran quarterback who's kind of coasting through the first part of the first preseason game. So no red
Yeah.
flags, which is a good thing.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Kind of leaning off into what you said, by all the reports and by if you talk to any Bears fan, they'll say, "Oh, Justin Fields is winning the battle." Right? Obviously, though, Andy Dalton had this big lead because he's the veteran guy. So, if Justin Fields continues what he's doing by all reports, and he continues to outperform Dalton in training camp and in preseason and in practice, when should he start realistically? Do you just start him right off the bat, or when do you throw him in there?
So I'm not basing this on the first preseason game because that's not, you shouldn't do
Right.
that. Now, if he outplays Dalton in preseason games 2, 3, and 4, taking first team reps, right? So against first team defenses, and this is something we're not seeing, and he's outplaying them in practice against their own defense with first team reps, with first team offense against first team defense, then I don't see why you hold him back, right? If there's a reason to say, hey, we're not sure, he's there, or it's neck and neck, okay, then you go with the veteran guy and you do that. But if he is truly outperforming him in training camp, in practice, and in the preseason games, I don't see why you don't start him. He's the future of the team. So start him. And then guess what? And then you go, if he is as dynamic as we think he's going to be, you now have, right? You know what you have with Dalton. And I'm not knocking that. But
Yeah.
you know what you have with Dalton. So if you have a player who's outperforming him, who's that dynamic, who can do so much on the field with his arm, with his head, we don't talk about how smart he is, with his head and his feet, well, then you got to play him. And then guess what? Now you have one of the best backups in the league in Andy Dalton, right? Not only a guy who can come in a pinch if anything happens, that can win you some games, that can help your team, but also a guy who's watching now from the sidelines, who's a veteran guy who can help Fields identify some of those things as a rookie that you might not see, and give him tips and mentor him. And they've already started that. It looks like they have a really good relationship.
hmm
So I would say, look, if that's the case, if he truly is outperforming him in every aspect, then yeah, just start him week 1. Like, they're trying to compare. The comparison always becomes, because Nagy's there, they're always trying to compare and say, well, just think about Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith. It was a completely different scenario. Alex Smith, and again, with all due respect to Andy Dalton, Alex Smith was a better quarterback than Andy Dalton. Alex
Yep.
Smith had a team in Kansas City. They were winning. They had a chance with Alex Smith.
Hmm.
And Patrick Mahomes was a guy that we didn't really know. They took a chance on him. They traded up to get Patrick Mahomes because of what they saw, but we didn't really know much about Patrick Mahomes, and it made sense for him to sit. You look at other scenarios where QBs sit. Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. He's sitting behind Brett Favre, right? So those scenarios, heck, Tom Brady even sat behind Drew Bledsoe until
Hmm.
he got injured. There's those scenarios made sense. In this scenario, again, if he's outplaying him, I don't see why you don't just put him in there. And I know everyone's like, oh, the Rams. He's Aaron Donald, and then a couple weeks later, he's got Myles Garrett. Well, yeah. What do you think he's going to have next year and the year after that?
Hmm.
So, I wouldn't look at the defenses they're going up against in the first 2-3 weeks and be afraid. If he's truly outperforming and he wins the job, well, that's why you have preseason. That's why you play, that's why you have training camp
Yeah.
is to see who's the better person, and you put the best one in that gives you the best chance to win. And we talked about this last week, Nagy and Pace being on the hot seat. So if he gives them the best opportunity to win, that's who you play.
Yeah. Totally agree. And just to add, you were talking about the situation in Kansas City. I believe it was 2017. A couple things very different. Alex Smith had been established as the Chiefs quarterback for years at that point.
Right.
Andy
Right.
Dalton's new. Patrick Mahomes, and I don't mean to say Justin Fields is better than Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying that. And in terms of a prospect, in terms of being NFL ready,
Yeah.
Fields is more NFL ready. Mahomes is
Coming
really,
coming out of college, I think we know what Justin. We think we know. Not we know. We think we know what Justin Fields is. Not many people knew what.
right.
That's why when the Bears get a lot of grief for not drafting Mahomes, but nobody knew. Like if you go back and look at the draft
Yeah.
boards, not many people, if anybody, had Mahomes. They had Watson over
Yeah.
Trubisky, but nobody, I think, had Mahomes over Trubisky. So
No.
it is a different scenario.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You were talking about leading in my third question. You're talking about giving the best chance to win. Part of winning is kind of masking some of your weaknesses, which I think Justin Fields does really well in terms of our offensive line, which at this point is a weakness. So with all the injuries and overall not great play from some of our offensive linemen, and the recent signing of guys like Jason Peters, how concerning is the current status of the offensive line in Chicago?
So, when we started talking about offensive line, I went back and I looked. And look, I get it. It's a super small sample size. It's one preseason game. Now, with Jenkins having back surgery, we don't know if he's going to play this season. I think that's obviously hurts.
Hmm.
But can Jason Peters come in? I know he's with COVID and some other things. Like, can he come in and play as good as we know he's capable of doing? Kind of shore up that line, probably at the left tackle position. I think that would be a huge help if he can come in. But from the small sample size that we have, a couple of things you should know. Pass block grade. I know one preseason game. I get it. The Bears ranked 4th. Not bad.
Not bad.
Seconds that they were given to throw. I'll give you some times for some of the other rookie quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence had 2.7 seconds. Zach Wilson, 2.4. Justin Fields, 3.8.
That's good stuff.
Now, again, it's the same. Again, if that holds up over the whole preseason game, I'm gonna be less worried.
Right.
Here's the other one that's really important, and I get it. Look, the Dolphins aren't a bad defensive team, so it's a good gauge. But again, I take it with a grain of salt because it's one preseason game. 0 sacks, 0 hits on the quarterback, and only 2 tackles for a loss. If you saw that during a regular season game, you'd say, "Wow, what a great offensive line."
Yeah.
So that's why I am taking it as what it is. It is still a preseason game, and I know the defenses aren't doing everything that they do,
Hmm.
but that gives me hope. And we've been saying about quarterback play for a long time in Chicago. A lot of that starts with offensive line play. So I think the guys did what they were supposed to do in the preseason game, and if they can continue to do that, I think a lot's going to depend, like I said, on Peters, on his health and his availability.
Hmm.
I think if you can bring him in and he can provide that kind of leadership on the line, I think we don't need a great. I'd love to have the best offensive line in football, but I don't think we're a terrible offensive line. I think we're okay, and I think if all the guys that are there kind of step up a little bit, I think we're in okay shape, especially with Fields, who does have some mobility,
Mm-hmm.
right? With Dalton, I'd be a little more nervous, but if Fields is back there, I'm more comfortable.
Well, and another thing that I really noticed within the preseason game is, especially with Fields, they were doing a lot of naked bootlegs, getting
Yeah.
him out of the pocket, moving those offensive linemen. So I just think, again, this offense runs better through Justin Fields, and that's why I agree with you that we should start him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with the offensive line. I don't think they look terrible. I think the injuries suck, especially Tevin Jenkins. I was really excited to see him. Hopefully, he can get going here in a couple weeks, but we'll see.
I want to say on Jenkins, it's so typical, unfortunately, for teams that are trying to build an offensive line. He was one that I had targeted in the first round prior
Hmm.
to the trade that got us Fields, and to get Fields and then still get Jenkins, I thought
Awesome.
was a huge win. And then and then something like this happens. So it's unfortunate, but I think they did the smart thing, signing a veteran. And look, they still might be looking around to see if there's can you flip? This is a crazy Bears fan in me talking. Can they flip Foles for more offensive line help? I don't know. There's going to be a team that needs a quarterback. So maybe that's
Yeah.
their chip that they have if they're not getting the draft picks that they want from Foles, because obviously Foles, to be a third string quarterback on the Bears, doesn't make sense for him. Doesn't
No.
make sense for us either. So
No. Well, and not to, stab myself in the back here, but Dwayne Brown over in Seattle is having contract issues. So it's happened to him earlier in his career where another team has swept in and traded for him. So there's always the possibility there. And I'm sure there's plenty of veteran offensive linemen they could trade
yeah,
for.
there's always a team. There's always a team that's hesitant to pay one of their O linemen because they don't value them as much as they should.
Yeah.
And I think the Bears should just be smart about it. And if they can swoop in and grab one, they should.
Yeah. I totally agree. No, I totally agree. That's all the questions I got for you.
That's it for this week. So that's it for Monsters of the Midweek. Send in your Bears questions, anthonyk at sportsfluent.com, or comment here, and make sure to subscribe and let us know what you want to know about the Bears. Until next week, bear down.